Thank you so much for being here, and I want to thank our host, Dr. Bedell, who will have an opportunity to speak with us in a moment as well. So the reason we're here, this group of leaders came together today is for a really important reason. It is to address violence, and that has been our common thread for, well, as long as I've been around, and longer than that. But we are trying to find new partnerships and new ways to look at this very stubborn and very old problem. And it is a problem. So we're looking to a group of students to help educate us and guide us and give us some ideas about how we can better serve them and how we can better serve the needs of those individuals who are really impacted by violence, and what more we can do as city leaders. So that is my sole purpose for being here, is to be better educated so I could learn how to better serve and better address their needs, and hopefully not stand in front of a podium where the night before was a tragic evening where 3 people lost their lives, one being an 18-year-old young man. And then I don't stand in front of podiums where the violence numbers are at historic rates, because that's where we are. I will say it doesn't feel like the Kansas City that I know. It doesn't represent accurately who we are, but it does then, doesn't it? Every year, the numbers seem to be the same. So we can't deny this is a problem. We can't blame all these other amorphous things. It's time for us to really take a look at where are the holes in services and in effort, and what more can we do? So I'm really hopeful that this effort with these partners will be something that we can deliver to this community in a oops, sorry, KNBC. We like you. Take nothing from it. Sorry, buddy. See if you can help me out there.
I'll just lay this up here.
Good. Thank you. Sorry. Our goal is simple. Our goal is simple in attacking a very stubborn and difficult problem. And that is through different partnerships and different voices that maybe we can be led in a different way. So with that, I'll pass it off to my mayor, Quinton Lucas.
And thank you, Prosecutor Peters Baker. It's good to be with you all this morning, and it's good more than anything to be with young people. I appreciate the school district for bringing us together. More than that, I appreciate the group of teenagers who are working with us to address our violent crime problem. It's always interesting what you remember from youth. And one thing that I remember from growing up was about 1992 or 1993, watching the news, and they were talking about Kansas City breaking a homicide record that year. And it's roughly 25, 26 years ago. What has been interesting or disappointing is that 26 years later, 27 years later, the same story comes on the news late each year. The same stories of tragedies, the same stories about a child getting killed before the first day of school. The same stories about teenagers who are dying in our streets sometimes, teenagers sometimes who are suspects. What we're here to talk about today is how do we change that? And the reason that we're here for real is that we recognize we don't have all the answers. There's not an answer that's at City Hall. There's not an answer at the prosecutor's office that's at the police department that is unique and is special. We need to engage with youth in our community, younger people in our community who are out there every day. We need to talk to them about conflict resolution. We need to talk to them about how to deal with trauma. And we need to learn from them and truly listen. So that's what this is about. It's not about some magic program, some magic plan. What's about is listening to the voices that are most important in our community, our young people. Because what I don't want is 25 years from now, one of those teenagers in the room to come in front of you and say, it's astonishing that we have the same problem, that we're dealing with the same issue. And what I also don't want us to have to hear, it's, people wonder sometimes, do you get used to it? The answer is no. I was in a 4-hour city council committee meeting yesterday about housing. And at the end, a reporter actually asked me, so what do you think about the 3 homicides in Kansas City over the last 6 hours? We shouldn't be hearing about that. No. We shouldn't ever get to that, and we should fight tooth and nail every. And I will tell you this. Y'all have to hear me talk about a lot of issues every day. There's nothing more important than what we're talking about today with our young people. We can have all the buildings, we can have the best teams, we can have the best streets, we can have the smoothest roads, we can be the happiest place to live in, but if we got a violence problem like this, then we will lose so much potential for our community, so much potential for the young people who are lost, the young people that are scared, the families that are scared, the folks that can't live their lives to their fullest. When I heard Dr. Bedell mention this, and I know he'll talk in a second, but how can we expect our children to be able to learn? How can we expect people to be able to go to work and give their best when they're dealing with this type of epidemic that we have right now? And there is an epidemic in our community. And what we're here today to do is not pay lip service to it, not just talk about it, start making a concrete difference. And so in recent weeks, I've had the chance to meet with our governor, our senators, all types of mayors from Missouri, all that sort of stuff. This is actually our most important meeting, because I think what we get from teenagers in that room helps to let us know the types of changes we need to make, the types of things we need to fund, and the type of emphasis we need to have to make sure that not just in 25 years, but in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, we're walking around and we're saying we've made a real difference in Kansas City. With that, I want to talk to let you listen to one of the difference makers, Dr. Mark Bedell. Oh, Colonel Oakman instead. Colonel Oakman of the Kansas City Police Department.
Yeah, the Kansas City Police Department has always supported any initiative involving youth, and I think this is a good idea we've looked at just about everything possible to address the violence problem in Kansas City. So this opportunity to hear what the youth have to say is valuable. It's something that we have to really, and this starts with each individual person. We have to ask ourselves, is this something that we are going to continue to allow to happen? And I'm not just talking about from the police department, the mayor's office, the prosecutor's office. I'm talking to the citizens of Kansas City. We have to get to know our neighbors. We have to know our children. We have to know what they're into. I have a 15-year-old and a 19-year-old son. And I tell you, I spend time with them and I make sure I understand what they're dealing with, what they're seeing, and what they think of the violence. And we have to be involved in the children's lives. And we have to teach them as adults how to deal with conflict. And that's one of the main issues, is that somewhere along the way, we have forgot how to deal with conflict. We have to deal with conflict. We have to know how to discuss things, work things out, and move forward. But like I said, the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department, we've had several youth initiatives, and we continue to get engaged because we still need to let the community understand, give them the tools to be able to deal with violence. And like I said, we're always available to be a part of whatever the community initiatives. That's what we stand for, and we will continue to work hard with all our different partners to ensure that we can make Kansas City a violent-free city.
And I think as we get ready to close out this portion of our event that we're having today, I would be remiss if I didn't thank our KCPD representatives, our city prosecutor, and our mayor for coming today. We take this issue very seriously, and what you may not know is that we intentionally chose roughly 25 to 30 students representative across the high schools in our school district that have been impacted in one form or another by some of the senseless violence that's taken place. And what we said was that we as leaders, we can come up with all of the answers, but if we're not living in those conditions, we're not experiencing the social and emotional distress and the trauma that these students are showing up with, then absent of having their voice be a part of the solution, we're not going to get to the root cause of how we as adults can make the right decisions to begin to heal this city. We also recognize that when our students show up with this type of trauma, and in many cases it's toxic trauma, it becomes an impediment to them being able to achieve academically. A lot of my students have dreams and goals, and they want a great life. And in many cases, some of these variables are determinants. It hurts them. And then when they don't feel like they can lower their guards and speak their honesty and their truths around what it is that they're dealing with, then ultimately they become even more disconnected. They become less of a value add to their communities, and they end up opting out in many cases, and in many cases they drop out of school, and it once again creates this continuous cycle, or should I say perpetuates this continuous cycle of hopelessness, right? And that's what we're trying to dismantle. And we believe that we have an opportunity to do that by listening to the students today and then taking actual, tangible action steps to begin to show our students and our community that we are serious about coming together to resolve the issues that are plaguing certain communities within this city. So I'm extremely happy to be here as the superintendent of this school district, and also as a former student, like many that you have in there, who's been impacted personally by this. Having a brother that got killed in a drive-by at the age of 17, having a sister that was murdered after I signed my contract to take on this job. I know what it does to you, but I can't imagine how it's impacting our students at such a younger age. And we just want to figure out a way that we can better serve the students in this school district, but most importantly, the students across the whole city, because it's not just a KCPS issue. We got 21 other charter operators that reside within us, and we have 13 or 14 other districts that surround us. And really, that's the responsibility of the mayor. He has the responsibility for all of that. And so I'm thankful that you've taken out time to come here today. And then, like I said, the prosecutor's office, they came and they met with us and said, hey, we really want to figure out a way to work on this. And then we got KCPD involved, and we think we're on the road to really beginning to make a difference. So thank you all, and I guess, do we all come up here for questions at this point?
So I know we don't get to hear from students today. Can you give us an idea of what you have heard from them so far?
So it's early right now because they're actually in their groups now. We've broken them off, and we have them working with other students from different schools. The Center for Conflict Resolution is actually facilitating that activity. We will have an opportunity to go back in as adults, and they will present to us what they've came up with. And at the point, then we have to then huddle up and begin to figure out how do we begin to devise a plan to start taking action on some of these suggestions.
The number one cause of homicides in Kansas City, at least this year, is just argument. And you talked about conflict resolution. Do you have some ideas already of some of the ways that you can help implement that in the schools?
Yeah, I can tell you last night at our board meeting, we made an announcement. We just received, we are a recipient of probably one of the largest grants that our school district has received in recent history, a $2.6 million VOCA grant. I want to say it's victims of crime, or I'm sorry, acronym, I'm murdered, but $2.6 million, that's going to allow for us to hire additional clinicians that will be able to come in and serve as full-time supports at some of our schools where we see that we have a lot of these issues from a trauma standpoint impacting the schools. It will provide us with additional funding to offer more conflict resolution training, because we've already started that in several of our schools in partnership with the Center for Conflict Resolution. But it will also give us additional funding for professional development for our teachers, so that our teachers can recognize and begin to look at some of the signs and symptoms of why our students may be showing up in a way that they may not be accustomed to. It may not be that the kids just don't want to be in school, but there are things that they're dealing with that's beyond the control of the four walls inside of the schoolhouse. And so this grant is going to help us, and it's a 3-year grant. in addition to the money that we've already invested in our budget since I've come on as superintendent.
Back in February, the night after there was a shooting outside of Central Academy, I remember you talking about how the steps that you had taken to bring clinicians to the schools, bring psychologists and therapists. I was just wondering if anything has changed since then, if you've made any strides in any particular area in the district since then.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at one point had 6, I believe, and now we're up to 13, and that's before the grant even takes place. I mean, because right now we'll probably do a press release on the receiving the grant on Monday. But in addition to that, we've looked at adding some family therapists into our schools. We've received a couple of grants from some local funders here to add additional social workers in our schools. And so we really are focusing on this area of social and emotional support. I often tell people that our kids show up and they have their guards up like this. And they have their guards up because they don't trust people. They may have had many promises over and over broken. And until they lower their guards, right, if you keep your guard up, that means you got your social and emotional defenses up. We're trying to get them to lower their guard. And once they lower that and they offload that on people, on adults or advocates, then I think it will allow for them to be able to focus more on their academics. The final thing I will tell you is our mentoring program. It's taken off. And we serve probably over 2,500 students right now through the various portfolio model that we have with our mentoring program. And that grant will also pay for us to have somebody that will be able to run data on the impact of those different levels of mentoring. But it will also allow for us to hire another coordinator, because the truth is I don't have the finances to just continuously staff a division just for mentoring. It's very expensive, but this grant now will allow for us to do that, because we've had a lot of interest in mentoring, but we just didn't have the bandwidth to continue to accept people, and then you have to monitor. So this grant now will give us 2 additional full-time equivalency positions. Now we can go ahead and go back on our website after we hire these new people and open it up for more people to come in and continue to help mentor our students.
Is this something that you are planning to continue to do in the future and continue to follow up with students, or even bring in different students as time goes on?
I'll let the mayor.
Well, short answer is yes. Here's the deal. We've got a problem. We recognize that it's an epidemic, and you use every resource to try to address it. And I think what you see from all of us is a recognition that it's not just in one office, it's not just one idea, it's not just engagement with one group. It has to be holistic. So I would hope we continue to have conversations with these very young people or with others. And as the superintendent notes, it's not just this school district. It is throughout the city, unfortunately, where we have some challenges. So I know the prosecutor and I have the fortune of representing a lot of school districts and have a lot of young people that we would look forward to hearing from. And so I hope that this is one of many meetings, and I thank the Kansas City Public Schools for inviting us to be part of this one, because I hope this is one of many where we talk about long-term solutions. One other thing that I do want to note, I've had the chance to go to one of the Kansas City Public Schools and interact with their conflict resolution group. And Dr. Bedell was just talking about folks with their guard up and bringing it down. And it is so amazing and impressive to hear a 16-year-old boy talk about how in his freshman year he was angry and getting in fights and dealing with issues. And frankly, thanks to our prosecutor's office, really, and the school district, him saying 2 years later, I know I can pursue my dreams. I know not to fight. I know how to be patient in more situations. That's the sort of thing we need to build, because it's going to be a step-by-step thing. There is not a magic answer to the crime challenge, but if we keep working on enough different initiatives with enough people and we touch enough people, then I think we will make a long-term difference, and that's what we're all committed to.
Mayor, you've obviously made gun violence and combating gun violence a priority, and I know we don't know what the kids are going to come up with today, but if there are action steps that come out of this, how quickly will we see a plan come together, and I mean, what do you plan to do with it?
Well, I'll tell you one wonderful thing about local government as compared to state and federal government is that we can do things actually very quickly. And convincing 13 people is a lot easier than convincing far more in a bigger jurisdiction. if there is something that we hear from this that the city can do, I mean, there's a city council meeting today at 3 o'clock. I'm interested in introducing it immediately almost. And in case you're wondering, a week ago, we introduced a domestic violence related ordinance. The birth of that was a visit of mine to a domestic violence shelter, where at the end they said, hey, have you thought about this as an idea? To which we said, channel 9. And we said, we have not thought about this as an idea yet, but let's investigate it, let's see what we can do, and let's see if we can get something drafted and passed in connection with it. And I'm proud of the fact that we were able to do that. So that's, in many ways, why we go to these meetings. This isn't just talk. That's what I want to make clear. None of us here is interested in 26 years of talk, right? So we come back and our successors are dealing with the same thing. We're here to make change in every situation we can. So I would say that we can act very swiftly. We're interested in doing that. And frankly, I'm interested in Kansas City being a leader, frankly, in how we resolve these situations, so that no superintendent, whether it be KCPS Center, Hickman, Grandview, wherever, is dealing with the fact that there's an 8-year-old who's murdered a day before school or 2 days before school. And the sad thing, folks, is that seems to happen every year. And that's the thing that we're trying to change in a meeting like this one. All right. Thank you.